Hi everyone, welcome to the channel Israel and the Bible, the channel that helps you to reconnect to the Hebrew Bible and the nation of Israel. Today we are continuing our discussion on the new covenant. What is this new covenant that God promised to the Jewish people, to the nation of Israel in Jeremiah chapter 31? So just to wrap up what we did in the past in our first video, part 1, we discussed the internal evidence surrounding Jeremiah chapter 31 within the book of Jeremiah, discussing what is this new covenant, what is going to be. Then in part 2, we went to the book of Ezekiel and the book of Isaiah to find out more evidence for what is the meaning of this new covenant that God promised to us. Today we're going to wrap up our discussion going into another prophet, which is within the scroll called the 12 prophets. So if you understand what is the Hebrew Bible is structured in 3 parts. There is the Torah, which is the law, and then there is the prophets, Nevi'im, and then the Ketuvim. So the second of the prophets is divided in 2 parts. One is the later prophets, which is Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the book of the 12, which is a scroll of 12 prophets that wrote beautiful prophecies and rebukes to the nation of Israel. And their writings were put together into a scroll, since their works are not too long, are 1, 2, 3, sometimes even 9 chapters, but it's easier to get them lost, right? Because if you see Isaiah, 66 chapters, Jeremiah 50 plus, and then you have Ezekiel 40 plus, then what happens? Well, that's very easy to preserve, but when you have only 1, 2, even 3 or 4, then it's hard. So that's what it was put together. Then there's another section called the former prophets. The former prophets, those books are Joshua and the Judges and Samuel and Kings. Right? So let's analyze what the book of what these prophets need to say about this new covenant. Very exciting information that we're discussing today for you to really understand what is this new covenant. So we want to understand why it was necessary for God to make a new covenant, to seal a new covenant. Why is it necessary? Because the nation of Israel sinned. Now, for us to understand what's happening here, we can use this following parable. God throughout the Bible speaks to Israel as he was a husband. Actually, he uses this theme, this imagery, all over the Bible. He says, I'm the husband and you are the wife. We are married together. Even in Isaiah chapter 50, verse 1 is saying, where's the bill of divorce? I never sent you away. I never divorced you. Please come back to me. So this is a thing going throughout the Bible. So yes, they had a covenant. Marriage is a covenant. And Israel broke it. Broke it because they sinned with other gods, which is a spiritual adultery. But God did not send them away. And in the Mosaic law, even after sending away the wife, the husband could take her back if certain situations were met, right? But God in Isaiah 50 is saying, I did not send you back. Where is the bill of divorce? Where did you go, right? Come back to me. Let's fix it, right? So God is talking to us using these themes, and this is very important. Now, in the book of Hosea, in Hosea chapter 2, God further develops this theme to the climax, to a beautiful idea which we're going to read. In chapter 2 of the book of Hosea, God is obviously upset with the nation of Israel, and he's saying, I'm going to punish you, I'm going to send you away, and I'm going to stop the festivals and your merriness and your gladness and everything. And then you will really see, what you get out of your out of your sin. But then in verse 16 he says, therefore, behold, I will seduce her, I will lead her to the desert, and I will speak to her heart. Those are beautiful words. And now he says, I will give her vineyards from there, and I will make the valley of Achor into a portal of hope, and she will dwell there as in the days of her youth, as on the days of her ascent from the land of Egypt. So here is pointing to Jeremiah chapter 31, the same thing of God, of that they brought the covenant that God made with them when He took them out of the land of Egypt. So here God said, I'm going to bring you back to those days, to the days before you brought the covenant. And then He says, and it shall be on that day, the word of God, that you will call me Ishi. Ishi in Hebrew means my husband. And you will no longer call me Baali, which is my master. I will remove the name of the Baalim, which were the idols, from her mouth, and they will not be mentioned again by the name. Why is that? So obviously this is very clear, right? Of course, if they renew the covenant and they want to follow God, so they will not follow false gods anymore. Second of all, you can understand it when in a marriage, God forbid, there is any of the parties is unfaithful, well, and if they're reconciled with each other, well, the name of the sinner, of the like partner in crime, should not be mentioned ever in front of the innocent party, right? Why? Because it's a reminder of the sin, right? So this is very important, and that's why he's mentioning here. And then he says, and I will seal a covenant for them on that day. So he's going to seal a covenant, and with the beast of this field, and the birds of the heaven, and the creepy thing of the ground, and I will banish the bow, and the sword, and the wafer, for the land, and I will lay them down in safety. And as a consequence of that, I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me with righteousness, with justice, with kindness, and with mercy. And I will betroth you to me with fidelity, and you will know that I am God. I shall be on that day that I will respond, the word of God, I will respond to the heavens, and they will respond to the earth, and the earth will respond with the grain and the wine and the oil, and they will respond to Israel. Israel was the name of one of the kings of the prophet. And I will sow her for myself in the land, and I will pity lo ruchama, which means not pity, and I will say to lo ami, that means not my people, you are ami, you are my people, and he will say, you are my God. Beautiful passage. We're seeing how God is going to take back the nation of Israel, and is going to make us into His people, and we're going to make Him into our God, and He will betroth us forever. So what we can see here, that this new covenant that is mentioning here also, this covenant, it's a renewal of the relationship that we have with God. It's like also like in a marriage, some people choose after 25 years, after 50 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever they want, to renew the vows. Why do they need to renew the vows? Because they want to recommit to the marriage, to show everyone that the marriage is as strong as ever, or even stronger, right? So this is what the prophets are saying, especially here and in other parts. The nation of Israel is going to renew its covenant with God, and it will be an eternal covenant, and we will forever be married to God. I will never sin again. We know that in Jeremiah says that I will remember the iniquities no more. Why? Because everyone will know God. Because we were faithful, and we will have righteousness and kindness and mercy. So we can see here how the words of the prophets in Hosea, in Ezekiel, in Jeremiah, in Isaiah, they all come together, and they give us one clear understanding, one unified understanding about what is this new covenant. Now I want to address now one point. Some people say, well, but you make a new covenant. Moses made a covenant, right? And he brought down the law. He was the mediator. And because he was a mediator, he brought a new law. He brought a law. At that time, they did not have the Mosaic law. And he said, these are the law. Do you take it? Do you accept it? Yes or no? The people say yes. There we go. So God is saying this, He's going to bring a new covenant. So it needs a mediator. So where is the new law? No? What's happening? Now, to address this topic quickly, let's go to another prophet. Let's go to the book of Kings. So the book of Kings in chapter 11, chapter 11, there he's mentioning chapter 11 and chapter 24. We're going to read. Now, book of Kings was written by the prophet Jeremiah. So it's very interesting because Jeremiah wrote Jeremiah chapter 31. So we are talking about the same individual. And he chose parts of the history of the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah to be included in his book. He did not write down all the history, as is mentioned there. You want to know more? Go to the book of the Kings and the Chronicles of the Kings, and you will find out every single thing that they did. But he, under Holy Spirit, under God's guidance, he chose certain events to be conveyed to us for future generations. Now, in quite a few places, it's mentioned that the nation of Israel sinned. They sinned against God, they worship false idols, as we know. And then a new king will come. He would find out what happened, that it was absolutely outrageous, and God did not prove that. And then he will change the situation. Every time this happened, the kings would do something. So let's go to to 2 Kings, chapter 23. There we're going to talk about the king Josiah. So King Josiah was a very righteous king. By the beginning, he didn't know better. He just followed what his father was doing, his wicked father. And then something amazing happened. What happened? That they found out where it was the original scroll of the law written down by Moses, by his hand. So such a discovery. Wow, this is an ancient scroll at that time, 1,000 years old scroll. They say, okay, let's read it. Let's open it up. Let's see what it says. Let's see what the founder of our nation has to say to us. They read it out loud, and they found out, oh my goodness, we're doing everything wrong. We're worshiping idols. We are mistreating people. We are not fulfilling the agricultural laws. This is a disaster. So in chapter 23, then let's see what happens. The king sent out and gathered to himself all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem. The king went up to the temple of God, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, as well as the priests and the prophets and all the people, and from small to great. And he read in their ears all the words of the covenant, of the book of the covenant that he had been found in the temple of God. The king then stood at his place and sealed a covenant before God, to follow God and to observe his commandments and his testimonies and his decrees with all his heart, with all his soul, to uphold the words of this covenant written in this book. And the entire people accepted the covenant, says in verse 3. So here we have this situation, which the king found out what happened. He realized that the Torah, the law, says that this is a sin. Immediately changes, and he makes a new covenant. What is this new covenant? To observe the law of Moses, the commandment, the testimonies, the decrees, everything, and the people accepted. Was there any new law issued at that time? Anything that changed? Any new religion? No. It was a renewal of the commitment to the law, to God, and restoration of the nation of Israel as the people of God, as having an essential role in pure worship. And that is what the text is telling us. And if you continue, then you can see how he's going to clean the land of idolatry and destroying the idols. And then he celebrates the festival of Passover, which is coming in a few days now. So we see how this is happening, and how the king sealed this covenant, and what are the consequences. Now this new covenant of Jeremiah is the same thing. Now if you may say, well, yeah, but this is a little bit different, because in Mount Sinai there was a mediator, and here there is no mediator. It's just the king forcing it onto the people. You accept it, yes or no. Well, let's go to chapter 11 of 2 Kings. Then we're going to see something amazing. Chapter 11 describes something that never ever happened in the history of Israel. The mother queen, she tries to destroy the seed of David. Her son dies, and he has a baby. Then she decides, you know what? I'm going to kill all the descendants of David, and I'm going to run the show. Now, the mother of the kid, she reacts fast. She calls the high priest, and they hid the kid away for 6 years in the temple. And they start to plan a rebellion. After 6 years, in the 7th year, they made a rebellion, and it was successful. So what happened? So in verse 15, says, Jehoiada, which was the priest, commanded the captain of hundreds and the officers of the force, and said to them, take her away, but keep her within the ranks of the guards, and anyone who comes after her slay with the sword. The priest said, let her not be put to death in the temple of God. They made place for her, and she came by the way of the horse's entrance to the palace of the king, and there she was put to death. Jehoiada then sealed a covenant between God and the king and the people, to be a people of God, and between the king and the people. And all the people of the land came to the temple of Baal and tore it down, and they smashed its altars and images, and Matan, the priest of Baal, they slew it in front of the altars. Jehoiada the Kohen then established administrators over the temple of Hashem. He took the captains of the hundred, the mighty men, the infantry, and all the people of the land, and they escorted the king down from the temple of God, and they proceeded by the way of the gate of infantry to the royal palace, and he sat on the royal throne. The entire people of the land rejoiced, and the city was tranquil, for they had put Athaliah, the queen mother, to death by the sword in the king's palace. Wow, amazing passage. But pay attention to what's happened in verse 17. There is a mediator. The priest seals a covenant between parties, between God and the king. Why it was necessary? Because there was a covenant that God made with David and his descendants, that there will be kings over Jerusalem forever, and there will be kings of Israel. And that covenant got broken. Right? Of course, the kings did something that was not good. Of course, they sinned. They led the people into idolatry. But that covenant had to be resumed. And then with the people. Why? Because the people also sinned against God. They did not say that to the king, no, we're going to follow. This is a sin. We shall not worship idols. No, they followed. So they also have a responsibility for this sin. And then between the king and the people. Why? Because after the David the kings stopped ruling for 6 years, then the people had to take upon themselves again the rulership of the Davidic dynasty. And as a consequence of that, then what happened? They got rid of idolatry. They destroyed the temple of Baal, and they killed the high priest, so on and so forth. So we can see here similar situation. There is a mediator. There are different parties. They sealed a covenant, but this covenant is a renewal, in this case, of the Davidic covenant and the covenant of the law, to follow God and to be a people of God, says the verse. So there is no new law that was issued, no new religion that developed out of this covenant. It was a renewal of the covenant. And this is what the new covenant of Jeremiah is. It's a renewal, an eternal renewal of the covenant that God made with the nation of Israel, and everyone, not just the nation of Israel, but everyone in the world will benefit from this covenant, as God promised to Abraham that through his descendants all the nations of the world will bless themselves. And this is the beautiful promise that God said to Abraham, and we all look forward to the fulfillment of the new covenant, of the Abrahamic covenant, the Davidic covenant, and for world peace and security and health to take place, and that everyone will live the life in tranquility, worshiping the only true God. Thanks for watching. If you have liked this video, please share it with your friends, give the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel please, to get further videos that we're going to do discussing the Davidic covenant, discussing many different topics, also bringing you news about Israel, the latest archaeological findings, amazing information that we're preparing for you. Thanks for watching. All the best.